is survivalhorror.com.
Hey guys, welcome back to La Movida Podcast. Today we have Toby here from Crufts, one of the developers behind Heavy Metal Death Can, and I cannot be more pumped to have him on the show tonight. I think, as you saw, the demo came out on Steam. We had other plans, but everything changed. So I hope that you guys get to enjoy this because I think the demo is so freaking good. Toby, thanks for being here again. So, guys,
Hey Joe,
for you,
good to be here.
yeah, it's good to have you here again, bro. I think we've been following this project since you guys announced it, and we were part of trying out the alpha build, and we put it out there for people to enjoy it in many different ways. I received message through or shorts that we did on social media and stuff. People asking for it and asking for links where we can get this. Is this coming out on console? I'm like, for now it's just Steam, and it's been a whole thing because I love when I can we can help out to like get reactions like that on. I don't know. It just makes me feel like so good. So I'm happy for you guys. First of all, let me congratulate you because the demo, I think it's like I already had this idea of the alpha build being like a very, very solid game. And now with you elevate it with a bunch of other stuff that you included there that we're going to be talking tonight. So for those people that don't know
Well, thank you.
about Heavy Metal Death Can, Toby, how can you introduce your game to those people or the audience?
All right, so Heavy Metal Death Can is a old school like classic survival horror game set on a submarine in sort of a late 70s Swedish setting. Um, that's like the elevator pitch, right?
Yes.
But the demo was released last week, and it's funny because the vertical slice, we had that content for a while. We wrapped that up in April, and you're the only influencer who got it, and the content is kind of similar. It's the same sort of play area, but with an additional year of development into it.
Yes.
And it just goes to show like how much that year of polish and additional work does to the same piece of content, right?
Which is great. It's great, and I don't know if you realize how important it was. The class was where we will get there later. I love that. So, Toby, I think if I can describe something special, and this is just me about Heavy Metal Death Can, it would be you guys nailed it on the environmental storytelling. And there's this thing that makes the game special for me, and I think we've talked about this in the past, but I want to like highlight it again. And it's like there's no voice acting, and the game still tells the story in a very comfortable way, and you understand everything that's happening. And sometimes in games with dialogue and voice acting, you don't understand what's happening. So for me, that's a huge achievement, and I want to point it out because I want to hear from you. Where do you got the influences for that? Because I know that I play RPG games as well, but I wanted to ask you: is there something in particular that triggered in your mind that you felt like, okay, I want to tell the story this way, or maybe I want to follow this path for that?
There are a few things, right? One is that um, voice acting is hard,
Oh, great!
and I I love the Zelda games, so I was looking to how those games solve certain things
Yeah.
and how they do like dialogues with their little just iconic one-shot audio cues, like the grunts or the wah or
Oh
the
yeah.
haha.
Yes.
These
Yes.
kind of like short cues. I feel like they add so much. Like it's enough. You get like an idea of who this character is. It adds personality, but then you yourself get to build the performance out of the
Yes.
writing, right? And that achieves a few things. One is that we can have the same like audio vocal experience in every language, If we were able to localize the game, we could still keep these audio cues or voices, right?
Important, yeah.
Um, but
Yeah.
also, but also I feel like that allows us to sort of tweak writing all the way up to release, or at least all the way up to QI, to localization delivery. So stay. We recently brought on a narrative designer
Okay.
uh, part time because we have a story we want to tell, obviously, but we're not necessarily writers, and
Okay.
and not writers and not English native English speakers. So the writing in the game will have a certain flavor,
Yes.
but so getting a professional onto it has been huge, and they're able to sort of nip and tuck the sort of writing that we did into something a bit more coherent and powerful, and being able to sort of tweak dialogues or files, everything all the way up to into polish and up to launch is really going to help to um, put a bow on everything that's plot wise. If we were to do voice acting, then those lines are set in stone,
Yeah.
at least unless you opt to re-record them, right? So
It's
I think
so
it has a lot of benefits.
I think the captain for me was where I understood, okay, this is I understand now. When you arrive to that room and it's like, haha, and and then of course there's skull, and it's it adds this extra charm that I think it's super important in survival horror games, but with a twist. And what I said this charm is there's an interaction of the gamer when you're playing a survival horror game, when you're going from all this tension and the environmental storytelling and the ammo scarcity and dealing with all this tension, especially when you go into the safe room area, right? Well, you get like a little bit of a rest, unless you're playing Resident Evil 3 and Nemesis is waiting for you outside of the door. But you know that it's there's this thing where even the music calms down. Resident Evil is notorious for the save room music, and I think indie games that came out recently, Heartworm did a fucking great job with the save room music. I think I still hear that melody in here, and that's so important because it's you nailed it, right? And I feel like those interactions with those expressions, and you mentioned Zelda, it's like the listen from Navi, right? It's like it gives that charm that it calms you down for a second, and then when the conversation's over, it's okay, back to the fray. Let's kick it back. So you have like that room to maybe calm down and prep, get ready. Okay, what I was doing and catch up. Because sometimes when you're running, it feels like a never-ending tension feel that not necessarily is good. Because I can tell you this, I spoke with a developer that it's working on a game that it's one of the influences is Outlast, and I swore to myself that I was never gonna play Outlast again because I love Outlast. It's a great game, but it messes up my senses. Like I was like really not. It's not that you're afraid; it's the thing that it's making you feel at the moment. And for me,
It's intense.
it's too intense for my flavor. I think that's the best way that I can put that. So,
So survival horror and horror games in general are about tension and release, right?
yep.
And that's sort of what the save rooms offer the player. So in many ways, going out for the game is sort of played in runs where you
Yes.
are in a safe spot. You prepare, you got your items that you
Mhm.
sort of gather. You have a map where you make a plan. This is where I'm going. I need these. I need some healing items. I need some ammo. And and it's almost like say that you're coming up for air
Yes.
and then you go down again.
Yes.
So you want that feeling when you enter one of these safe spaces to be a little bit like
It's so
like
it's so
that's
good.
where the tension can.
Yeah. It's so good you mentioned that because it's sometimes I feel like people don't get how survival horror should feel. And nowadays there's like this misunderstood and I see it a lot. Like for example, when you're going to the Steam tags, right? you see people putting survival and horror separate, right? Survival horror, and you got games that not necessarily fall into that category, but they're put in there, and they're more survival games with horror influences than any other thing. It's like it's not the same thing. But then you can have, it's very interesting because you can have games like I Hate This Place that just came out, which is a survival game. There's a lot of crafting and stuff, which crafting is in Resident Evil in some way. But then when you're going into this dungeon style like places, like you go in for like dives into this like underground facility, it feels like a survival horror game from an isometric look. And
Oh,
it's
really? Awesome.
it has all that tension. It has the ammo scarcity. It doesn't matter how good you prepare outside on your base because you need to build your base and set the cooking station and the whole thing. But when you go in there, it's like you're diving. It's completely and it's just so good. So there are exceptions for everything, but I think it gets, people don't really get sometimes the feel. And I'm working on an article right now where I'm focusing on trying to understand the schools of thought, right? Like where people come from. Like there's people that actually believe that survival horror needs to be like Resident Evil, right? Because Resident Evil made the thing famous, right? There are people that believe no, Resident Evil, it's a completely, yes, it defined it, but it started with Alone in the Dark. There's people that believe that it never evolves. OG survival horror should not be confused with action horror. It should not be confused with psychological horror. Everything is like me myself. I see it like metal, like metal music. So you have metal, right? And within metal, you have thrash metal, you have death metal, you have black metal, you have like, there's a bunch of ramifications that came out from it. So I see survival horror the same way. It started as survival horror, and then you have psychological horror came out, and you have the action horror came out, and then within the sci-fi comes out of there too, and it's mixed with action horror like Dead Space, and I still believe Dead Space is a survival horror game. It checks all the boxes for me, but I can understand now the schools of thought. Like, where do people come from? Because for me, at one moment, when I think about, for example, Clock Tower, started as a point and click, right? But then you have Clock Tower 3. Beautiful. Rule of Rose, Hunting Ground. But in Rule of Rose, you can fight back. It's super limited. But in Hunting Ground, you can't. So, where do we draw that line? For me, it's not important. For me, it's more about the feeling. Like, how do I feel when I play this? Does this feels like he comes from that root? Like somebody used an influence from that? Yeah, then I see it like a spectrum, right? Started out with Resident Evil, with precursor games like Alone in the Dark, and even RPG games with survival horror elements that later became like influence, that like Sweet Home and stuff like that, but they're not necessarily survival horror games. And the same thing happens with psychological horror and other genres that came out from it. So it's very interesting that you mentioned that specifically, because I feel that there needs to be the option of fighting back, but the option of not necessarily engaging combat. You can evade, and the survival horror for me goes away when you start having control. And I want to congratulate you because I never felt in control when I was playing heavy metal Deadkin. I was feeling of more of I'm trying to survive here. I'm trying to get away. I'm trying to get all my stuff done. And then of course with this build that you guys pour out as a demo is super more polished. Like you said, it's like a year into development. It felt like you work even further on it, and it makes me
Oh, for sure.
freaking happy.
I have a few comments on the sort of genre stuff, right? Because genre is tricky when it comes to games, and
Yeah.
I think your comparison with metal music or music in general is pretty apt because that's art, right? So there you try to describe an aesthetic, and in terms of game genre labeling, there are a few schools of this, right? But say that you're doing genre labeling for Steam, the sort of aesthetic doesn't really come into play until you go a few more steps down the chain. So in that case, horror is more a label of the aesthetics, and you try to nail down, is this like an action game? Is this like an adventure game? Like super bare bones design wise,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
And then you get to terms like survival horror, which is originally like a marketing term for Resident Evil, but we know, so you can't pick survival horror in Steam. If
Yeah.
you were to pick survival, then you would get all these expectations from like survival games like
Yeah.
Ark or 7 Days to Die or whatever.
Yeah.
Um, so in many ways, the what we feel is survival horror is more like those sort of almost like a point and click adventure game,
Yeah.
but with like an action element. And then you can get even more granular, like you have resource management. You have to maintain your ammo to get that survival horror flavor.
It
Um,
is.
so I think it's really interesting, and it has been sort of abused because uh, it is pretty explicit what it means, right? But in my point of view, that's sort of how we have been trying to to design it. Sort of think of it in terms of those original games. The focus is to solve the level, right?
Yes.
Solve the submarine, sort of like finding the key, solving the puzzles, and survive while doing so. Um, and any mechanics that we were to sort of invent, like the class,
Oh,
would
perfect.
have to benefit this core idea.
Before we jump into the class, I wanted to, just highlight that heavy metal that kind of has the setting, right? I feel like survival horror, the setting is super important, right? It's like a
Oh, for
mansion
sure.
or the city. It's total chaos in Raccoon City, or even hey, even the setting in Silent Hill. It's just there's something about when you set up when you're building that environment. I couldn't think of a better place to build this type of game that can of it's metal, it's underwater,
Can of death.
you're closed in there, it's very claustrophobic, and in top of that now you have a disease rampant or whatever it is. I guess we'll, without spoilers, we'll figure it out. But you have zombies in there, so you have to survive, and there's closed doors, and you need to and you can hear just put yourself in that situation. You can hear the water creaking on the walls, and it's scary shit. So one of my favorite games from the Sega Saturn is Deep Fear. I think I mentioned it last time. But I feel like even when I played Deep Fear, it had this feeling of, oh, they took that's how they pitch it, right? It's like Resident Evil but underwater, and it was the corny voice acting and the phrases and the characters. They look weird. I love the game. I have my physical copy. I play it and I enjoy the hell out of it. But there was something that didn't completely sold the whole thing for me as it did with other games. Now I have the opportunity to go back and play the generator that I love inside a submarine. And like I said, and I think I said it on the video when we released the full, and thank you for trusting the platform. We released the demo full gameplay, and I said it. I was like, this is how I imagine in my mind when I had copies of, for example, like Fear or whatever other game that sold me the idea that this was underwater, how I was expecting it to be and more. Because it's like now it has other things. And we can talk about the claws, right? And I was saving
No, I
that
want to
for
get
now.
into
Yeah.
I want to get into the sort of submarine thing because I think it's very interesting. It was sort of the unlock to the entire game, obviously the setting, right? Um, and we are quite aware, or it is sort of a philosophy we have at our studio that um, what you see is sort of all there is, or rather, I really value the vibes.
Oh yeah,
Like we can try to do proper, like, good game design,
yeah.
and all that stuff, but that is sort of the under the hood stuff. Um, that's our responsibility. What matters towards the player is that we get the feeling right. And from the start, like, I had this sort of key art, the first thing we did was sort of making like a look dev scene, right? That looked sort of like your background there with the green and the red,
Yeah.
um, just to sort of nail nail the vibe. I can go into the spiel of sort of how it all started, because it is sort of, it informs all of
It
this.
is an interesting
If that's
story.
okay.
Yeah, yeah. Go ahead.
So I used to work at this other game company called Mirage Game Studios, and we made like cozy management games. And I've always been super into like metal and horror and that kind of stuff, obviously.
Yeah.
So I didn't. That was like sort of an itch I didn't really get to scratch at that studio, even though I'm proud of what we'd made and such. But as that studio folded during like 2024, a colleague of mine, we have been sort of discussing uh, doing a survival horror, like, the train sequence of Resident Evil Zero.
Oh yeah.
Um, what if the entire game was on the train? What if the entire survival horror game was in this cramped environment? I think that could be so cool.
Oh yeah.
And then uh, when the studio folded, we got a few months of severance. So we were sort of like, are we doing this?
Jump
Are we
right in.
making this game? So he came up with the submarine theme, um, which felt like this. That was that was the unlock, because a submarine is sort of scary enough as it is
Oh yeah.
without zombies. Just being underwater, trapped in like this sort of cold, uncaring metal vessel is terrifying.
Oh
And
yeah.
then you can add all kind of monsters to that to add to that tension. But the core tension is still the fact that you are leagues underwater. And like, how do we make it out of here? You can't just leave, like a mansion or whatever. You
Oh
can't
yeah.
just go through the door.
And leave. Yeah, right. You're trapped in
um,
there.
so anyway, exactly. So the first thing we did was that we went to this museum. Um, there's this like naval museum in Gothenburg, where they have a submarine of the era, as well as like a couple of additional like vessels. And we told the guide that we were making this game, and we were sort of the last. It was the last day where they had open for the season. It was in December, and he was a tall gamer, so he'll open up every compartment, and
Perfect.
he would sort of like explain what all the things were and what they did. So we got hundreds of reference images from that visit, right?
Yeah.
And that has been sort of the core in terms of making environment art, and in many ways level design. Honestly, like, some of these rooms are straight up ripped from the actual boat,
It's
just to
great.
sort of make them believable spaces. So in terms of the size of the vessel, Sweden did not have a nuclear submarine, obviously. So that it is way exaggerated. It is a huge boat. But in terms of like specific aesthetics, those are totally reminiscent and represented by like an actual
It,
actual assets.
it's so cool that you get to share this story with us, because I believe that at these times, so many people don't have an idea how much sacrifice it gets for indie developers to get this stuff done. And the fact that you guys went out there and did some research, right? Physically went in there, and I'm pretty sure, knowing Toby, I've been sharing good conversations with Toby for a while now, and I can imagine Toby hitting the walls of the submarine just to hear how it sounded. It was like, I need to get this sound right. Um, the doors,
I'll do you better.
yeah.
The footsteps of in the game is from the actual boat.
Look at that. See,
because
And
I had a feeling that I'm gonna need this. So I took my phone and just sort of recorded footsteps and when we went into the submarine. So those are totally authentic. Same with the door sounds. They are also like I was doing this to the door, like opening, closing, slamming it, and the guy was like, what are you doing?" Like, I'm getting audio.
that's so cool. That's so cool because
So yeah,
I can
for
see
sure.
it happening, because it's like, and continue talking about how you build the environment, because I think it's one of the most important things, and one of the things that I really enjoy about playing heavy metal that can is the sound. And I'm gonna share with the guys a video. It's gonna be down there below because you explain how you work in the sound for the game, which, in my opinion, is one of the most creative things I've seen, especially with the guitar. Um,
Oh
I,
yeah.
it's aside from all the sound that it's on the demo that the audience is gonna get to experience if you haven't already. If you landed here after playing the demo, good. If you haven't played the demo, the link is gonna be down below. But it's just, it was so good for me to come in this time now in this final version of the demo, and being on the menu when I hear this music, right? I don't know if you saw it, but I'm there in the menu and I can hear this super smooth, kind of like smooth music and chill music that it's perfect to mix with like metal, right? You hear this guitar going, and I remember I said something like, "Oh, I like this," like, but I was expecting like a heavy guitar or like a drop down command in the music because I'm a metalhead as well. I used to play bands and stuff. So, and then I'm like, no, he's not gonna do it. This is the menu, and then it drops like bam, bam. I'm like, oh my god, this is like, music is a universal feeling. You know what I mean? And that right there, and then going into the game and seeing all the improvements and seeing your videos on how you use the electric guitar to create the sounds that would create that tension, because usually, and some of you might not know this, but when you see horror movies, you have a lot of chords in there. There's a lot of like strings going on to create the high pitched sounds that scare you on movies. But Toby said, nah, that's overrated. I'm gonna use a guitar, and an electric guitar, and it's so good. So check out that video. I'm gonna let Toby explain uh, why did you choose an electric guitar as one of the main tools for your atmospheric sound?
So there are a few things to that. Like when we started our studio, it was very important for us to. We had like a few core pillars that we set out to. Every game should sort of live up to this, and one of them, these three are sort of. I want the games to have sort of retro appeal.
Yeah,
We're never going to chase trends. We want the games to have like alternative themes. So we're talking horror, we're talking uh, metal,
yeah,
you know, and we want it to be like sort of passion-driven game development. And these are kind of vague, but they go. But one of they inform a lot of what we do, and one of these things is sort of that we know from the get-go that we wanted to have metal music in there somehow.
yeah,
So that is part of the name is like a pun. It is like a big submarine. It's heavy metal, but we also it was a no-brainer. I also been like in the metal scene for all my life, and it was just if I were to make a soundtrack to a game one day, then that is for sure what I would do. Um, but the demo doesn't really have any like huge set pieces, right? So it would feel like the tension would be kind of tricky to maintain if we were
yeah,
to sort of do it like a full band thing. So I put that drop in the menu. The first idea was to sort of have it like an unlock. Once you complete the game, you will get like a metal version of the main menu theme. But I also put it there because I was thinking, what if like a streamer or somebody for some reason just hangs out at the main menu, looks at settings or whatever, and then all of a sudden like gut punch, bam.
yeah. That's exactly how
Then
I
I feel
felt.
like that's that's when they would know what we're all about, right?
It
And
it's funny because
in
that's
terms of
exactly what I did. It's
hell
I'm
yeah.
just hanging there talking, explaining like, this game, like we're gonna be playing this, and then like a bam, and I'm like, oh my god, that's so good. It's great. It's great. I
Like
saw.
hopefully we can do get some more of that music into the game itself. But when we went to that submarine, I was thinking about sort of the ambience, right? What are sort of um, the audio experience of just sitting here? And one thing that stuck out to me is that there are hums everywhere, like whole bunch of small machines and things that has this sort of like what's it called, like a cycle hum. Um,
Yeah,
so it sounded almost like uh, an amp in a crappy small rehearsal space with poor wiring.
that's a
Like that
perfect
stuff is gonna
description.
be like
Yeah,
right, exactly. Like you can imagine it. It has a very specific vibe, and that's what it reminded me of being on the submarine. So we were just sort of obvious to me that we can do this. We can like take sort of just play around with feedback from the guitar, and not only is that gonna be kind of unique because I haven't seen a lot of that in these kind of games because they tend to be like classic horror movie
yeah.
like Psycho fare with like these strings and such. And to be clear, I love that, but just it was sort of it was a vector to merge the metal, and I'm a guitarist, so sort of getting those elements into the like ambient horror music was a vector for us to do something a little bit different, I think.
I think one of the things that I respect the most about the project, and I don't think I have mentioned this before, but it's like I'm Puerto Rican, and Puerto Ricans, we're very very proud of our folklore and our culture, right? And Puerto Rican culture is like a melting pot. We have Spaniards, Africans, and the Taino culture, right? And everywhere we can, like people are always making fun of like you see a Puerto Rican, because they're carrying the flag. Yeah, I have the flag tattooed in my arm. I have, you see people driving with the flag like gleaming from their cars and stuff. But it is so it made me feel so related to the fact that you didn't change the name of the doors, or everything is in your native language. And the first time, it's Swedish, right? So the first time that I saw it, I was like, I don't know
Yeah.
where I'm going. But then you figure a way to make it. And I saw that the keys, they have tags. So I started, that worked as a puzzle because I didn't understand I think this is vapor something, but let me check. So I was looking at the tags and the keys, and I'm like, this is not this door. Is this other? So that turned that into another element that it's super important within the survival horror genre. And it was so good that I even mentioned it on the when I was playing, and then we had a conversation with the community on the Discord that night with the guys, and they're like, I don't know if they did this on purpose or not, but if they didn't do this on purpose, this works as a puzzle. So it's
We didn't.
you did it on purpose? No?
No, no, no. The thing is, there is sort of an examine. If you were to sort of press like interact and
Yeah.
highlight a tag, you will get like a localized string.
Oh, we did. I didn't
But
know.
no streamer got it, so it's an UX thing. It's on us, obviously. But it has been so difficult. People have been like, "How am I supposed to know Swedish?" And we're like,
But it's
"You don't have to. There
yeah,
is a localized thing here."
but it was so
So it's
good.
very
Like
charitable
when
that
when
you.
when you turn it around, you can see the name and you can match it to the door. And for me, the detail of having the name in the tag helped me figure it out. And that's something that you don't get usually. Usually, if you don't get it, you don't get it, and you figure it out the hard way. I also wanted to,
the,
yeah, go ahead.
the choice to do like the Swedish thing is was very deliberate. I thought it was very interesting with playing Signalis. They were like
Yeah.
German on the walls and such, or on like posters and such, and I never felt like that was. I only felt that was cool. Like
Oh yeah.
the fact that I can't read the words here, I don't understand. In terms of an horror game, that sort of adds to this sense of otherness, right? That I
Yes.
can't fully understand what's going on here. And so we were talking about maybe we should do like a Russian vessel or whatever that would sort of be Cold War themed, and but it would also feel like kind of phony because I don't know their culture, right? So pretty early on we felt like going all in on the Swedish scene was something that would sort of be make it was we would be like informed, with the sort of visit to the museum and such. We would be informed to make something that feels authentic,
Yes.
but also kind of new. Like this setting is quite rare in games, and we were able to sort of pick from our own culture and our own like history, folklore, and use that like as a source for m- a lot of things in the game, like thematic, environment, art, that kind of stuff. And that is something that goes into like our back to those sort of core pillars, because I have gotten feedback, a lot of feedback from like proper like marketing people
Yeah.
that the Swedish scene is too niche and it's too weird, and you don't want to have Swedish text, you don't want to have sort of to make it too much, it's too icky. But then I feel like same with the metal, people have been like, not everybody likes metal, you can't go all in on that, but like I don't know, man. I think that's a gamble we're gonna do, but sort of going all in on those
Yeah.
eccentricities is what's going to make the game different and unique, right?
Yes. Yes. It does.
Being
It.
sort of honest to that, to your own intentions, instead of trying to sort of dilute
Yeah.
what makes the game special. You can go all in on that, and if people would not like it, that's totally fine and fair enough. But at least um, we go all in on these choices, creative choices that we make, right?
I have a. I have a completely different experience from the alpha build, and I'm going
Hmm.
back to that because I like doing little speed runs every now and then. We were talking about that before we started recording, and I played the alpha until I got it. Like I was able to speed run it, right? And I tried. I remember you sent me the. This is the final version of the demo, and I'm like, okay, I'm going in. I'm gonna record the content, and this is gonna go. I already know this. I swear that I went in and I was like, I start texting Toby, guys. Like I was texting Toby like, this is hard. I don't know what the hell is going on. Like I was dying a lot, and at some point it felt like, why am I doing? I need to be doing something wrong because it started to feel like when you know that Resident Evil, especially the first one, if you don't do the stuff the way that you're supposed to, the game feels like the most difficult game ever. It's impossible and you get frustrated. So I was getting there, and all of a sudden I see this door that I was going through, and I think it's I can remember, I think it's on the second floor, and you go in, and I remember the zombie was there. He came immediately launching at me, and I knew that I hit the wall and you just evade him, but I couldn't find anything, and I decided to go a little bit further, and there's this table, right, and this locker, and I was like, okay, this is something different. So I go in there, and there's this shovel, and you said it's the class, and I picked it up and I read the description, and I'm like, okay, so this is like a melee weapon. And I remember that you told me something about maybe thinking about putting melee in the game, and opened the locker, and there's a repair kit, and it said that that was a repair kit specifically for the class, right? So I turn around, and I'm immediately pushed to like, okay, I'm gonna test this on this guy. So I grab it and I hit him, and he gets knocked out. And I'm like, whoa, that's useful. But then he gets back up, and I'm like, oh. So I'm going to hit him again, and then it's not doing any damage, and I died. And I'm like, okay, I know where this is going, and this is gonna be great. So I started saving that clause as a last resort, the same way I hoard ammo, because I believe that I'm one of those guys. Ammo is precious in these type of games. The more I can evade, the more I can use like melee weapons or a knife instead of like, for me, I can sometimes I get to the final boss and I have 80, 120 bullets, like it's like, and it's something that shocked me because once I got the claws and I rebuilt my whole strategy, I was able to finish the demo, and I was like, oh, this change completely changes the game. What can you tell us about and how this idea behind the class making it to the game came to be?
So when we were last talking, I was very skeptical about Melee because Melee is kind of tricky to get into the survival horror sort of like economy, right? Because uh, damage costs ammo. That is the
Yes.
core. And if you were to allow like free damage, you sort of undermine this whole resource management system. And I feel like our Resident Evil did it kind of they did it good, but like in terms of game design, because the knife is so terrible that you will end up paying health
Yep.
instead of paying ammo. So it's intentionally terrible, but as a player that maybe you don't reflect on game design, it is just kind of frustrating, right? Or it can be. So we felt like we weren't going to do melee at all until we came up with this sort of other solution, other vector of using melee, uh, because we were noticed during playtests that players would get like cornered, and that's when the demo will be over. Because
Yeah.
there's if you get cornered too bad, you're fucked.
Oh, it's bad.
So we
I
wanted
know.
the class to be oh, it's bad for sure, and we wanted the class to be that a utility for that moment. So if you were to get cornered, you could just explode and be like
Yep.
whack. Now we get another chance, and so it doesn't really do any damage. It's only a stun, but it's a very powerful stun.
Oh yeah.
And I know once we got that like core idea, then it sort of clicked, and we can redo all the difficulty of the game because now we know the player will have the class, and if you maintain your like charges, then then we were able to make the zombies more aggressive, and we were able to make the combat more punishing and interesting.
Oh yeah. There is a difference in
Even though a lot of people have been
the.
saying that this game is too difficult.
Oh, you know what?
um, which
I am a firm believer that games that are difficult, you're making it difficult because you haven't figured it out the right way. Even when it's
for sure,
like for example Inferno, like I like to, yeah, I think I can go that path. So Resident Evil 3 remake receives so much hate from people. Like, I don't like that game. The game's too easy. They cut it out. You know, I'm in the boat that they cut it out a lot of content, right? But everybody's saying like, oh, Nemesis, he feels like, you know, the OG one feel like more like dangerous. Like the tension was more. I was like, have you played the game in Nightmare or Inferno? That dude runs over buildings and just like, have you tried that? You should, because if you haven't, like, it doesn't matter how many melee weapons or, you know, grenades you have, he's gonna get you. It's like it feels like the original concept, because I was talking with Chris, one of the guys from Discord, and we were having this open discussion about it, and all of a sudden I am of course complaining about the content that got cut out, and another guy is complaining about, oh, this game feels like it has like a lot more action than the original game, which, you know, I immediately said, well, Nemesis, the original game, had a little bit more action than two. That's a thing. Like, it's not, you know, we had that like in full like assault rifle that was like, you know, so there's a lot of like into it. It's not that simple. But then Chris said something that made me like, oh, like just, you know, he threw in the clarity in the conversation. He said, do you guys remember the original game, for the original name for that game? And I'm like, well, it's Resident Evil Nemesis. And he goes like, Biohazard, The Last Escape. So in this game, the main focus of the game is you need to feel like you're escaping. just running away. And I'm like, oh. So if you play the remake in Inferno or Nightmare, you are running away all the time. So
You're running away.
yeah, it is. I am not. I'm not saying it's like the best game of the remakes or anything like that. But I understood maybe a little bit late how the game was crafted. I don't know if that makes sense. Like I was like now going back at it and playing it, and it's like, you know what? I like this. I like this a lot. And I enjoy it for speed running. For speed running, because it's short, it's like very enjoyable experience. Like you can do it and do it like a maximum difficulty, and you know that within an hour 20 minutes or maybe less. I got it done in like 48 last time. So it's yeah, it is one of
Difficult
those things.
difficult is a tricky one, right? Because
Yeah.
like you say, you have to sort of meet the game on its own terms, and if
Hmm.
you play by the rules, then things will work out. Like we try to. It might be too difficult. I mean, I'm on the fence there. Obviously, we'll see. But I try to make like design philosophy wise. I kind of try to do a little bit like the Dark Souls thing of it's a matter. It's all more like a puzzle,
Yes.
and if you use the tools properly, then it's not really that hard. We never set out to make a game that had like where like skill is necessarily an even like an important factor. It is more about strategy, like where you opt to place yourself, um, how you opt to spend bullets and such. But since there's no aiming and there's no uh, I guess there is sort of react react times,
Yeah.
but uh, if you're dying, then you switch up your gameplay a little bit, and it's gonna be fine. And I
Yes.
kind of feel like we see how it goes. But I've seen streamers play through the demo first try, and they weren't really like hardened survival horror players, but they played carefully, and used all the tools at their disposal. And if that is possible, that a first-time player can get through the game without dying, then I feel like we're at a pretty good spot.
Oh yeah,
And if you
definitely.
were to sort of, go in guns blazing, you're gonna get your ass kicked because
Oh
that's
yeah.
not the game that we're making.
That's not the yeah, that's definitely not the game. And I feel like if you can go in guns blazing, I would start looking at the tag of survival horror with a different look. You know what I mean? It's not. I don't.
Exactly.
I don't feel like that fits in there. Before we go on what's next for you guys, I wanted to read the questions from the guys. So I have a question in
Of
here,
course.
and of course, this comes from one one of the guys. Is like, I just like he just wants to know, why are the zombies touching their neck like they're choking when they coming at you? Is this intentional in
Yeah,
design?
yeah. I think it's so cool that people notice these stuff because I
Yeah.
feel like, are we too subtle? So, we're not really, in terms of, we have like a story in mind, but me and my colleague, we're not really writers, so we try to keep it simple. And in terms of horror, we want everything to go back to sort of the fear of drowning or the fear of being submerged. Everything has to tie back into the core theme of being trapped underwater. And so, in terms of the actual like zombie mechanic, um, the possessed, they are sort of asphyxiating, right? They are being drowned by the sludge, and it was sort of a way for us to tie everything together to that core theme. So that's very observational.
So it's like I think at some point we were talking. I think it was like behind cameras or whatnot, and you told me something that there's something like poetic in them wanting to like drown you in some way. Like it's that the feeling that they're trying to like when they throw the sludge, right? That's super.
Exactly.
That's a
They
pretty
they are afflicting you with the
yeah.
with the
That's
drowning as well.
that's a pretty good question actually. So
It's
The
a fucking awesome question because it goes to show that they have really like observed the game, but also it, we try to do. It's important when doing theming for games that everything sort of speaks the same language.
it's a
That's why I'm
cohesion,
so
bro. It needs to be.
cohesion.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I'm so with. I know a lot of people like get buy assets or they're like you can generate stuff now, but I feel like we really want to nail these themes early on so that everything we make from then on can sort of inform that theme somehow. Be it like the setting or be it like sort of our story themes. But like having those things nailed down early, that can inform how is this enemy going to convey this thing, right? Or how is this environment going to convey this setting? And it's really rewarding that they picked up on that.
The next question goes in when we were talking about the no voice acting. He said, I don't, it's like, I know Joe already told us that it's Swedish, but I am just curious. What does, I think I know what it means, but what does skull means? Uh, this is
Oh!
skull. Is it
It means cheers, like with a drink.
nailed it? Okay, that makes total sense. So he's
And we've had like that's a funny one because I cut that line. Um, I only had in the vertical slice it has like a looping skull line, and then I felt like that's gonna be annoying, so I cut it and only had him say skull once, and then my brother was like, "No, no, you gotta put that back in. It's meme.
yeah.
People are gonna love it."
It's like he
The
keeps
first
just
time I
he
see
keeps
somebody
drinking
stream.
and screaming, drinking. You can be in the room and he's just like, "Hey, how is this new dude not on the floor?" He's just like chugging on that bottle.
Exactly. Somebody suggested to have like an achievement if you get him to drink like 5 times or whatever.
I have two more
This
questions.
sort of
This next one is like, I just want to congratulate you on the puzzles. I almost lose my mind. I almost lost my mind. This is very bad handwriting. Sorry, you helped me out write this stuff, and now I can't read it. So he's basically asking like the puzzle, like the one with the frequencies, right? With the Morse code. Got him like because he doesn't know Morse code, but he learned Morse code to actually solve the puzzle.
yes,
So are we
that
gonna
is so
see?
cool.
Are we gonna see more? So the question comes at the end, right? He's congratulating you with the great work on the puzzle, but then he's asking, like, are we gonna see more puzzles like this one in the game?
So the thing is, the Morse code puzzle has been like a tricky one because I got all kinds of feedback from like this is so unfair. People are not. You can expect players to learn Morse code, right? And some people felt like we were being too easy while like keeping it only to like 5 letters or whatever. Um, so it's really tricky to know where to put it because I don't want like in terms of survival horror, you want the puzzles to be you don't want them to be condescendingly easy.
Yeah,
That would be like matching shape, square peg round hole kind of stuff. But you also don't want it to be totally killing the pacing either.
yeah,
So it's balancing finding a puzzle that is sort of satisfying to solve while not being overly difficult is kind of tricky. Um, we will aim to have puzzles on that same level, sort of. I think that was a fun one, especially in terms of components,
oh, yeah,
components. So there are like three pillars to that puzzle. You get the first the actual key
yeah,
to unlock the radio thing, and the frequency plaque, and you have the day of the week. Those are
yes,
sort of the clues that makes up for the puzzle. And you could solve it with only like the radio valve, right? But we have a few ways to make it a lot easier for you. And I'm thinking if we can make more puzzles that has those sort of like multiple steps and not
yeah.
just the one thing solve the puzzle, then I think we're in a pretty good place. And there will be more of those for sure. But specifically nailing down difficulty, that is something that we're going to have to find out during testing how
I
to make it satisfying.
I
But there,
think
there's a thought process when designing these puzzles.
I think I'm gonna tell you why I have faith in your project after we read this last question, because this is one that I didn't thought about it that way, because for me it was like, of course, but now I'm curious. This guy says, well, at the end of the demo, I thought for a moment that I was walking into a boss fight, but then I got left with a cliffhanger there. Will your game feature bosses?
Sorry. Yes, there will be bosses for sure. We're actually we're doing some polishing on the bosses this week, actually.
Okay.
Uh, and we, I don't know, yes, there will be bosses, and they're going to be pretty fucking cool.
Awesome.
That I can say.
That's awesome. So I I have faith in heavy metal, that kind of what you guys are building, because of everything that we have talked in here. And of course, we kind of like scratched the surface earlier in this conversation when we were talking about the different schools of thought and how people perceive survival horror, and you know, and I respect everybody's opinion. I'm a guy, like, I'm actually working on an article right now. Is there any orthodoxy in survival horror? That's the actual title of it. Uh, but I feel like I've seen a lot of reactions from people within my community and in other communities I'm a part of, where you have these people that are super purist, and some of them call them gatekeepers, which is like a term that some people get wrong. And if you kind of think about it, we kind of need those people. And there are people that are in the middle, that they consider that the genre evolves, and there are people that just started looking at survival horror like action horror because they started playing when Resident Evil 4 came out or something like that. And from
Mm.
what I've got, the feedback that I've seen is like every single one of those tiers loved the game. So when you have people that are super, super, super closed on how an OG classic survival horror game should feel, saying this game is awesome, it hit all the boxes, then I know for sure that if you can get all the spectrum within the survival horror fan base, the game is going to be great. And I think the job that you guys did, like you were mentioning, how you explained how you came with how important it was to build that environment, because you wanted to get the people to feel that, it's so important when building these types of games. And I think that this conversation, it's not going to be the same if we're talking about genres like action adventure, like we're talking, because you know, games of action adventure, sometimes I feel like the last thing that you look is at your environment. You're more about the mechanics and how am I gonna, you know, how many guns I can carry, how many this and that, and there's so much into it. But this feels like survival horror has its hallmarks very well defined, like OG classic survival horror, like we're talking right now. And once you check those boxes, you need to make magic now to make something new, because it's so closed that if you do it, people are gonna say this is a Resident Evil clone, or this is that. I've played 10 games that look the same way, and then you cannot make everybody happy. But now the game came out, the demo came out. I'm happy that people finally got the hands on it. I think I've been telling you this since we met. Like I really enjoy, and I'm super pumped about Heavy Metal Decken. And for the people that are
Hell yeah.
watching, the audience, the demo is out. You can play it right now. Go wishlist it a lot. It's gonna help the guys in Crofts a lot. I'm gonna drop the links
Hey, I have a little
down
bit of a
below.
comment on what you're saying.
Yeah, yeah. Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Sort of to hop on to this sort of genre thing, because that is a very interesting conversation,
Oh
right?
yeah,
And we try to hit all the like core elements of classic survival horror, and in many ways we are a Resident Evil clone, right?
right.
But
Yeah,
it was very important for me that that is only like mechanical. That is like the template of the game design, but I did not want it to be like a clone in terms of setting an IP.
Yeah.
That's the main difference. Like it was very important that we had our own identity, and so once we have got the core, the ground built, set up, then everything we do from there is all about chasing that sort of feeling, that sort of
Yeah.
vibe. And you've been in the metal scene, like there's so many genres and there's so many scholars who put like bands in
Oh
different
yeah.
genres and such. But I always kind of felt like, we make heavy music, everything in our power to really make this game something special. In many ways, I feel like we started this company and this project, we were in a position where we have gotten, laid off. And in many ways, I felt like this is like our chance to make something different, or
Yeah.
rather make something that is honestly what we would have made. We have no external pressure here. Like it's only from within. Make the thing that we wish existed. And seeing how the demo has been sort of received and everything has been so cool, because it just goes to show that, like, you can you can do the classical thing of trying to find like a core audience, a market segment for your product, and blah blah blah. But I really do feel like if you're a gamer and if you are passionate, make something that you get excited about, and that's, you know sort of something that you yourself would want to play and experience. I think that's going to resonate with people. That's like, it's so easy, it's so tricky, but it's so easy at the same time. Just
Yeah.
make something that is true and authentic, and something that you get excited about. And I think other players are going to feel that same way. And
I think
I guess we find out, but that is sort of we went into this studio with that mantra. Like, we can try to come up with whatever people are going to like, but that's not going to work. Or you're always trying, that's a moving target. You're always guessing.
yeah.
So let's make something that we think is cool.
You know that I
And we're
I
not that unique, so people around the world are going to like it too,
I
hopefully.
identify a lot with what you just said, and I before we go and close this amazing conversation, thanks Toby for taking time for this for the third time. Um,
Thank you.
that's an internal
It's a pleasure.
that's an internal joke, but I feel like when I started streaming and creating content, that's why I took off my glasses and I was trying to make what I was watching, if that makes sense. I was watching streamers doing, playing whatever was like the hit of the moment, like playing COD, playing Warzone, playing, and I remember the first time that I hit the box for myself was when I decided, you know what, there's a new Destiny season that comes out in a couple of weeks. I'm gonna start streaming Destiny because I love Destiny. I love space games and everything with helmets and stuff. I love it. I'm a fool for it. And I started, and that's how the at that moment I was called Average Joe, and it went pretty well. But after a couple of things happened in my life, I decided to stop streaming. I stopped streaming like for 3-4 months. Got myself pulled together, and I'm talking with the guys, and that's how hashtag El Gaming Salva Vidas came to me, which is hashtag Gaming Save Lives. Is because I was going through a very very hard time in my life, and I found solace in connecting to the Discord, and that's why our Discord, it's an essence. It's a very important part of what we do because everything started there, and these guys were cheering me up. But one of them told me, Joe, you're like a walking encyclopedia of survival horror games. That's all you talk the whole day. When you are not playing with us, you're streaming here on Discord, speedrunning the OG games, like the Resident Evil games. And somebody just asks you one question, and you drop tons of lore on a person that doesn't know anything, and they look all confused. Maybe you should start doing that. And I didn't realize at the moment I started doing this, and it was a slow kind of like a thought process, and then it hit me. I was like, people are liking this because people see through you. and you can tell when something is authentic and you're doing it because you like it, and when it's not. And I can tell right away that passion projects like Heavy Metal that can, and I can relate with it, and that's why I sort of like engage and pick up games and start like contacting people, because it's like I feel related to what you guys are going through in a certain way, because I'm not a game developer. I don't know, and certainly, you know, being a content creator has its sacrifices, but I'm pretty sure that you guys do a lot of sacrifices to get this stuff done. So with that said, what I was trying to get is like, I want really, this is why I started doing this, because I really want people to understand how hard it is when you're doing a passionate project like this, or when you have to work with another person that you're giving instructions on how your game is supposed to look. It's different. And at least I appreciate a lot the effort on trying to keep the survival horror flame alive. This is why I started all this. And this is gonna keep going, and I hope I meet more people awesome like you guys. And Toby, you know that La Bóveda and the survivalhorror.com is your house, and you're more than welcome to come on the show anytime you like. So I hope Heavy Metal that
Hey,
can drops, and you guys get to make the game of your dreams, and everything you ever thought about it, you know, comes to fruition.
I gotta follow up on that. I really think what you're building here in this community is so cool because, like, it goes to show that classic survival horror isn't dead.
Yeah.
Um, and maybe it's not big enough for the Capcoms of the world to, or or the Konamis to sort of make a new classic survival horror. And fair enough, those teams are huge,
Oh yeah.
those games are expensive, but I mean, we had a feeling that we wanted this, like more games like this, and I had a feeling that more people around the world felt the same. And your community just goes to show that survival horror is alive and well.
Oh yeah. And we're gonna keep
So so cool. I'm so excited to get a lot more fun games to play.
we're gonna keep pushing this, man, and getting more people to find out cool games, and trying to build some stuff. I'm working on new stuff for the website. Soon you're to find out what's the project. I think it's gonna be very, very
Hell
well
yeah.
appreciated for everybody. I'm trying to go a little bit, you know, far and beyond. We already started the vault process. It's very hard to keep up with all the releases that are like announced and stuff. And sometimes I even found games that I didn't even know that they came out, and people are started reaching me. I have like a backlog, a crazy backlog of messages. I'm trying to, guys, I'm trying to go through everything, but it's like I do this like completely on my own. Now I put my kid on board, and he's helping out too. So I don't know. This is like a family business. Everybody on our Discord or our community is part of the family. So again, thanks for being here, guys, and Toby, thanks for your time, and I hope everything goes well. So until the next time, guys, go and follow the link, follow the developer for more updates. This was La Bóveda, Heavy Metal Deckhan.
Thank you for having me.